Live on connectonair.com and remoteradioweek.org.
Connect on Air.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Insights and suggestions on how to keep your radio business operating through any crisis. 100% online, 4 languages. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
And thank you for staying with us here on UNESCO Remote Radio Week. This is your masterclass on interactive radio. Now, we all know one of the things that the internet has created is limitless choice. And that means we all have the attention spans of a goldfish. We really have enough time to devote to a single activity. There's distraction galore. The world is brimming with more media content than ever before. So engagement is probably the most important quality, is getting and holding on to attention. And that's why we've got this particular masterclass on interactive radio. It's enhanced, as we know, engagement's enhanced by interactivity. So our host for this masterclass is Nathaniel Ofori from Ghana. And Nathaniel is Manager of Digital Innovation at Farm Radio International. He's got some really great ideas on innovating on radio and mobile applications. Over to you, Nathaniel.
Thank you very much, Omar. And hello to everyone. As Omar mentioned, my name is Nathaniel Ofori. I am the Digital Innovation Manager at Farm Radio International. And I will be presenting on interactive radio, innovating on radio, and mobile application. Farm Radio International pioneers innovative digital solutions and develops engaging new mobile approaches to make the world's most popular communication platform or tool, radio, more entertaining, effective, and interactive than ever before. After years of researching and learning from working with radio station and listeners, we discovered that interactive and quality radio program is key. In this light, we have developed 2 key flagship applications to contribute to the mission and operation of radio station. The first one is Farm Radio's Uliza interactive application that focuses on interactivity and engagement. And the latter, that's the second, is Uliza Log, which serves as audio management application for radio station and provide quality assurance for partners. So to zoom into details, the first application, as I mentioned, is our interactive Uliza application. How we use digital technology to get feedback and interact with listeners who don't have access to internet like the social media and the rest, or instant messaging. Our Farm Radio Interactive Uliza application is a web-based application used to power mobile-based services for sharing information and gathering feedback through mobile interaction. The application uses multiple communication methods such as voice, SMS, USSD, and instant messaging and social media. The application allows users to send and receive data using any basic phone and presents data in real time. Our interactive application can help partners gather accurate real-time information on topics such as agriculture, nutrition, health, and education, irrespective of the sector. Now, our interactive application provides actionable data to empower insight and decision in combination of radio. As part of our work, we train radio stations from a distance, remotely, or in person to use our interactive application, but more especially to engage hundreds of thousands, making them active participants in radio shows as opposed to passive listeners. Now, driven by our organization's digital innovation team, which I am part, the Uliza interactive suite of services were developed from the application to ensure effective interactivity and engagement in our radio shows. The first service is the Uliza Alert. Now, this is an automated voice and SMS service that sends time-sensitive alerts to selected audience. Messages can remind listeners to tune into a radio program or a radio show, or send certain tips already covered by a radio show, which can help listeners gain more insight or more understanding of the radio program. The second is the Uliza poll. To enable interaction between radio broadcasters and the radio show, radio station can conduct weekly or daily poll or ask questions of their listening audience. Depending on the setup, radio listeners can either call, allowing those with low literacy skill to interact, or text a number, and then answer a specific set of questions, both a poll or an open-ended query. The third service that we have is the Uliza Answer. Now, the Uliza Answer allows listeners to ask questions and receive answers and advice via their mobile phone. Callers receive the call through an automated phone call to address a question that they have asked on the platform. The fourth one is the Uliza Info. This is an interactive voice response or an SMS-based service which helps listeners access timely and relevant information related to agriculture or any other information over the phone. Now, how we make radio e-extension more interactive using interactive Uliza, our application. First of all, we work with stakeholders in the design of radio poll questions and option to ask any general question. And then radio station partners announce the radio poll on air during the live show, whether it's a daily show or a weekly show. From the diagram, you see the loop that listeners then send their responses via phone call or text message, depending on the channel that we are using. And then our interactive application captures and displays listeners' response in real time as you see it on your application. The next step is that their responses and poll results are addressed and discussed during the live radio show by stakeholders or resource partners who are in the studio. Now, after the show, the data can be analyzed and shared on social media for a larger audience, for them to appreciate the discussion that went on at a particular radio station or your radio station. But what about questions that are sensitive? For us, questions that are sensitive are answered and sent directly to the listener by an expert without using the mobile phone. You remember that in the previous slide, I did an explanation of the Uliza Answer as a service that you can use. Now, someone will ask us that, has this been tried and tested? More than 1,050 of our radio partners and development partners have used our application to interact with more than 1 million individual listeners. In our previous fiscal year, that is 2020 to 2021 fiscal year alone, there were 433,255 interaction via Uliza interaction application that we captured. Now, for me to zoom into our quality assurance, because it's important for you to ensure that as part of ensuring there's a lot of interactivity, the quality of the radio program is also important. So as part of that, Farm Radio International has an application that we have called the Uliza Log, also called Farm Radio Quality Assurance, which is an audio management application for radio station. To zoom into details, Our audio application, our audio management application for radio station called Uliza Log is a web-based collaborative quality assurance application, and it is used by farm radio staff, broadcasters, knowledge partners, and other stakeholders to archive, monitor, review, and evaluate radio shows content and production. Our Uliza log makes it easy to keep track of multiple ongoing projects or radio program by letting broadcasters submit reports on a daily or a weekly basis and attach the recording of the episode or the radio program. These reports are evaluated and rated by approved farm radio trainers for quality assurance and control. So although radio programs are broadcast, we find it very important that we need to evaluate the radio program to see if it meets the standards that we have set at farm radio. And not just about the interactivity, but most importantly, the quality of radio show that goes on the radio. So producing an interactive radio program and a quality radio program helps you to disseminate tailor-made information that are reliable, trusted, and relevant to your audience. In these notes, if you have any clarification, what I have done is to set up one of our application, our interactive application, to receive your question for you to appreciate how the system works. But I will leave it here and open up for discussion, and then we can have a few Q&As. Thank you very much. Omar, you are muted.
Okay, I'm supposed to be the one who knows how to do this. But a really good presentation. Thank you so much. A really interesting application that you've created. Now, obviously, open it up to the audience, many of whom have seen this, like me, for the first time, probably never knew that something like this existed. Want to open up for questions if anybody's watching that's got anything they'd like to ask Nathaniel to give them advice, information, insight into that they don't already have from your presentation. They're welcome to send their questions through now. They'll come through to me and I'll pose them to Nathaniel. But while we're waiting for those questions, in one of those applications, like early on, you were talking about the alerts. You said it will be sent to selected audiences. So do you segment which messages go to whom, and how do you do that?
Thank you very much. Now, as part of your radio program interaction, listeners can call and participate in the poll. Now, whilst they do that, you have the liberty to group them depending on the answers that they provide. So, for example, if you want to focus on gender, you have that opportunity to group them in folders and send specific or tailor-made information to these targeted audience. For example, if you have a news program, you need to give your news, and you want to send information to people who normally listen to your news, you have them stored in a group, in your news group, program. So you can send it directly to them so that they know that it's time for them to listen to your news, when the time is up. If you have a sports radio program or an agricultural radio program, you can tailor-made the information and send it to specific group of people who have participated during that show. So depending on the radio program that you have produced, then you can send that information to them.
I got it. So what about cost here? I mean, obviously, like you say, you work for Farm Radio International. This is rural radio in many countries, many parts of the world, where the more rural you are, the less access to broadband or scarce or poor broadband quality. Does that affect how well this particular app functions?
Thank you very much for the question. And it's a very interesting one. The application relies on the normal 2G phone call or a normal 3G phone call. So irrespective of the situation, all that the community needs is for them to make phone calls. If they can make normal phone calls, they can still participate in your radio program. all that they need is a basic phone, whether it's a feature phone, a smartphone, or a basic phone. They can still participate in your radio program. All that they will do is to listen to the radio show. You give the number out as I showed in the diagram, and then they will call a number and participate in the poll. The next question is the cost aspect. So the cost aspect is subject to the radio station. The radio station has an opportunity to bear the cost even from the listeners, meaning they can do it in such a way that the caller can beep the number and receive a call back for them to participate in the radio show. Or the caller can call directly into the radio program. From the radio station standpoint, in terms of the cost, we have done it in such a way that it's a pay-as-you-go service and a few fee on the phone number that we provide. So, for example, you just have to top up depending on the platform, whether you're using your debit card or a credit card, or if you're in a specific African countries and we have integrated the mobile money app, you can pay through that so that you can use it in your radio programming. So we have made it very flexible so that radio station can adapt or use this application in their radio programming, because we have realized that during the phone-in segment, you have a duration that you are producing a radio program. And during the phone-in segment, you can only do a maximum of 5 minutes or 10 minutes phone call for people to share their views. Now, let's do a simple math. If you allocate a minute for each caller or each listener to call in, it means that the maximum people that you can allow to express their view on your show will be 10 people within a 10 minutes, phone call. But with this application, because listeners can call anytime during the show and leave their voice, on the system, you can receive thousands of calls, during your show. So if you look at the application that I've just projected, for this, we received close to 356 interaction, and the responses where people voted or participated, we had 170, responses on the application. Just a show, you can imagine. Now, if you zoom,
wait, just hold on. Let us project that.
Go
Give me a second to get our people to just project what you are showing. Yeah, these are the statistics from a particular example at a particular radio station, right?
Yes, yeah, and this radio station is located in Malawi, called Chisomo Radio. Now, in the radio show, what they were able to gather was 474 responses from listeners. But if you look at the interaction in total, you see that they recorded a higher interaction, in total. Now, for only question 2, for this particular radio program, they had 170 responses for just a question, and 356 interaction. So you can imagine the power these two can do, or the change that this interactive application can provide. Now, as part of it, you have 2 sets of data in your radio show. So because it is not just about the radio program, it's about you also gathering information and also analyzing your radio program and also getting content to inform the next radio program that you will be producing. So here you have, an insight of what listeners are saying, or depending if you want to look at the gender segregation, you have an idea of people who are listening to your radio program and interacting with you. Apart from that, you also have content, meaning that you have voices recorded on the system that you can play. I can play it, and then you listen to it. And then if you find very useful in your radio program, you can like it. Click on the like button so that you like it. Or you can also transcribe. Let me just do something here and do test, and then just save it. You can transcribe it. Now, what I have done is to transcribe that audio. Now, what I can do is I can filter it per the information that I have received by refreshing the page, so that it will filter the information of the people that have, liked a particular audio of the show. So I like it, and then I can filter it, and then you see the like audio that the system has captured. So I can just display all the like audios and then play them in my show during a live radio program for an expert to answer those questions. And as I mentioned, you can also transcribe the audio just to give you a fair idea of what that person is saying. And then also, when you play it, you can explain it, to listeners or the experts in the studio to answer a question.
So Nathaniel, what kind of data do you actually collect on the back end? Is it just the mobile phone number, or is there any more than that? Oh, okay.
It's not at all. We collect depending on how the application is programmed. You can gather where they are located to give you a few idea of where your listeners are located. Here, I can project where they are located, and I have their names in there. Now, as part of their recording, they can mention their name and their location, and then you can key in here so that the system will capture, so that when next time when they record or they participate in your radio show, you know where they are located. So here in the map in Malawi, I know where Enoch is located on the map. So that is one data.
Just to be clear, though, you only know that it's Enoch because he would have been previously a participant. He would have given you his name, which you would have associated with that mobile number. Had he not done that, you would. Yeah, okay.
Definitely, because the person must give his or her consent first before you can capture that. Data protection is very important for us and very key for us too. The other aspect too is you can gather quantitative data and a qualitative data, as I mentioned. You can do audience research with this and gather these information. So this is very key for you to ask listeners, for them to give feedback based on the radio shows that you have broadcast, so that it can keep you informed of the topics that you are discussing. You may never know, maybe the topic that you're even discussing on the show is not what the listeners are looking for. The listeners are looking for key topics that they want the radio station or the broadcaster to discuss on the show. But if you don't have this type of system, it becomes very difficult for you to appreciate what listeners are saying. So feedback for us is very key and very, very important in our radio programming.
Excellent. We have a question from our audiences. Raj Elixir is asking this: how do you manage so many questions and analysis? Is the software AI based? Because obviously you don't have people on the back end, dozens of people, I assume. Maybe you do, I don't know.
Thank you very much. Currently, because the voices are done in local languages, analyzing the voices needs to be done manually. So it means that you need to have people listening and transcribing the audio, because you have a lot of local dialects. Now, there have been some improvement in AI aspect, because English and French, there's a lot of libraries for us to use. But when it comes to local dialect, it becomes difficult because you have thousands of them all over the world. But in terms of the quantitative data, the system analyzes the data. It gives you the raw data, and it gives you an analysis of that. Apart from that, you can export the data and run your own analysis, and further for you to check whether a male and female, how many participated in a particular radio program in terms of age group, how many of them participated, in a particular program, how many of them select a particular answer, and all that. You can run that analysis by exporting it into a SSV file and all that. So you have that liberty to do that. But in terms of the voice, we are working on the AI aspect for it to analyze the audio. But as I've mentioned, and as the reality stand, we have challenges with thousands of local dialects all over, and I know that there's improvement. There are work going on, and definitely we'll cover that.
Okay, great. So Nathaniel, the other thing to know is when someone subscribes to your offer, to this offer that you've created at Farm Radio International, they get the entire back end, right? To work with.
They get the user interface to work with. So they have the opportunity to use the radio, our application in their radio programming. So, but there's a few trade-offs. For example, for us to give you a discount and all that, or have it more free in code, there will be some, discussion for you to, have an agricultural radio program on your show for you to, benefit from that, or, some level of discussion for you to use. But if you want to use it in general, then definitely you will have access to the application and use it. Yeah. But
Right.
as part
So-
of currently what we have,
Yeah.
the radio station within our network are the ones using the application in their radio programming. Sure.
Got it. So obviously there's a front end and there's a back end. You were talking about all the data that comes in and how you can segment that data based on gender, based on location, etc. Who sees that? Does the radio partner that gets involved with you also have access to all of that, not just the front end part? Do they have the? Yeah. Okay.
Yes. So dependent. So first of all, I just want to make this thing clear that the application is a multi-tenancy application. It means that when you create your own account, you have access to your own data. That's the first part. So you have the opportunity to create user roles and permissions. So depending on if a radio station A is using the application, they have the privilege to create roles as to who can see this and who cannot see that, because the data belongs to them. Now, if you are working with farm radio, then definitely farm radio have access, can see the application, and also the radio station can also see that. So the radio station have access to the data, and farm radio also have access to the data correctly. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. So you still retain access
But if it is if a radio station creates an account by themselves, then they have they have access to the data. It belongs to them. It doesn't belong to farm radio because they are using that application. Yeah, definitely. But the data sits on farm radio's application. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then just a final question as we wrap. I don't see anything else coming from the audience that's watching. Is this all cloud-based because it's mobile? Or
yes,
does it sit on servers both local and on the cloud? How does that work?
No, from the user perspective, as a radio at the radio station or a radio presenter or a partner, it's a cloud-based application. It's a web-based application.
Right.
So all that you need is internet for you to have access to that. But one unique thing is, after that's a setup in your radio show, listeners can participate in the poll or call in and all that without you necessarily having access to the application. So for example, if you don't even have internet, you can set it up before your radio show, and listeners can call in. If you even have internet challenges, they can still call in, have access to the content, leave their information and all that. And when you have access to internet, you can just log in and see all the responses that the application has captured.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Nathaniel Ofori, who is from Ghana. He is manager of digital innovation at Farm Radio International. You have been watching our masterclass, the UNESCO Remote Radio Week Masterclass on interactive radio, innovating on radio with mobile applications. Thank you very much for your time, Nathaniel. Thanks for watching.
Thank you very much, Umar, and goodbye.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
Connectonair.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021.